Happy Tuesday to you, or whenever you happen to be watching this. Happy Monday, happy Wednesday, happy Thursday, happy Friday, happy Saturday, but not happy Sunday. Welcome to the Perfect Podcast Show on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. I'm Keith Saltojanes, and happy all those days to you. If you're watching on Sunday, well, sorry, I didn't tell you happy Sunday. Very exciting show today. I'm back from some travels and back in the studio, which, as far as you know, I've always been in the studio and I haven't been anywhere else. That's the magic of internet here at the Perfect Podcast Show, where my goal every single show is to do the most perfect podcast there is. Haven't succeeded yet. Hopefully today it will happen. We have a very special guest lined up for today's episode. But first, like every episode, I like to begin with a joke that was sent in from one of our listeners. There's a phone number you can call to leave your own joke or to text a joke. That phone number hasn't been set up yet, but some people have figured out how to set up the phone number of their own and then send it in, and it's a whole spam type of thing. But anyways, here's the joke from Michelle from Wisconsin, Illinois, which is a real place, Wisconsin, Illinois. Here's Michelle's joke. What do you call a deer that likes corn? What do you call a deer that likes corn? The answer is a buck and ear. That's right, a buck and ear. Wow. These jokes just keep on coming in, and they're all very original and different, and that's great. Thank you, Michelle from Wisconsin, Illinois, for sending that in. I bet it's confusing when people try to mail you stuff, and they're sending it to Wisconsin, but also Illinois. I wonder if anyone flips it, and then it's Illinois, Wisconsin. Actually, it doesn't even matter if you have the zip code. Can you write anything you want? Can you write any name? Doesn't matter what name you put. Maybe the street. You have to have the street right. So you could probably put any name. You could probably put your name has to have the street address correct. And then you could just put anything you want, USA, and then zip code. If you have that zip code, name probably doesn't matter. Zip code matters. Street address matters. I wonder if anything else matters, really, if you're sending a letter. Like, it doesn't matter who it's for. If you're getting it and you know who it is when you open it, right? It doesn't matter. And the city doesn't matter, because I know there's lots of cities that have slightly different names. Here in Los Angeles, you can say you live in Echo Park, but it's still Los Angeles. So if you put either of those, does it matter? I don't know. But the zip code matters. Very curious about this. Wow. Well, now that we talked about the U.S. Postal Service, let's get to our guest today. Our guest is a very special guest. I've known this guest for how many years? I think my entire life. I have known this guest. Probably the longest person I've ever known. This guest is a writer. This guest is an actor. This guest is a comedian. This guest has done a lot of things. This guest has been a writer for National Lampoon, which is a comedy institution in the United States. National Lampoon, really the precursor to Saturday Night Live. So this guest has written for that. This guest wrote for the BBC, stepping outside of the United States, and has written for the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation Company Club. I actually don't know what the C stands for. I think it's British Broadcasting Club, British Broadcasting. Maybe it is broadcasting. Who knows? Maybe our guest can tell us. Also, this guest has appeared on screen on such television shows as Curb Your Enthusiasm, Community, and a new sketch show starring Marlon Wayans. Maybe we'll get to hear all about that. Some other things about this special guest. This special guest loves tea. This special guest loves tea, loves traveling. Big fan of the Beatles as well. Maybe we could talk about that some. We'll see what happens. But this guest I've known my entire life. Please welcome to the Perfect Podcast Show my special guest. I can't talk today. My special guest, Keith Saltojanes. Hello. Thanks for having me on the show, Keith. This is incredible. Wow. I finally get to be on your show, the Perfect Podcast Show. How are you doing today, Keith? Well, thanks for being on the show. This is special to have you on my show. It's really amazing. Some might even say egotistical, but I don't. I think it's just, to explore you and all about you, Keith. Yeah, it's not egotistical because it's just, it's you're talking to your guest, Keith. And just because we have the same name and just because we might have the same face, It doesn't mean we're the same person, right? You hosting the Perfect Podcast Show might be a different person than me, who's the guest on the Perfect Podcast Show. That's a good point. Wow, just getting right into it today. Well, before I go into any more stuff, there's so much to talk about with you today, Keith. We must hear an ad from our sponsor. So we're going to hear that, and then we'll come back and I'll ask you some questions. So here's an ad from our sponsor. Okay, I can't wait to hear. Supported by the all-new Chevy Trekker. With a better safety rating than any other off-road vehicle out there, you know you made the right choice with Chevy Trekker. Wow, Chevy Trekker. Wow, that's pretty amazing. The Chevy Trekker, that's great. The Chevy Trekker there. That's really cool. I'm just stalling for a little bit to see if you have anything you want to ask me as the host of the Perfect Podcast Show. You want me to ask you a question? Yeah, why not? I'm the host. Yeah, but I'm the guest. Usually the guest is supposed to ask. I mean, the guest is supposed to answer questions, not really ask questions of you, right? You ask me questions. Yeah, I know. I'm just changing it up. I'm trying to make the perfect show. Every other podcast, the host is like, oh, let me ask you a question. And this time I'm going, maybe the guest asks a question. Okay? Okay. So, how did you come up with the name Perfect Podcast Show? Oh, great question, Keith. Well, I was thinking of the name of the show, and I wanted to make a show that was all about making the most perfect podcast. So I named it the Perfect Podcast Show. Pretty exciting stuff, if you don't mind me saying. Yeah, that's pretty obvious name there to call it the Perfect Podcast Show. Great. So do you have another question for me? You want me to ask another question? Okay. Why don't you want to ask me a question? That's my question to you, Keith. Okay, that's fair. I'll ask you a question. So you've done a lot of things. You've been on Curb Your Enthusiasm. You've been on Community. That's so exciting. So I do want to hear about what was your favorite part about being on Community. But before that, we have to listen to another ad. So we're going to listen to an ad, and then we'll get to the answer of that question. So let's hear that second ad. Episode of the Perfect Podcast Show is brought to you by the brand new on the market Ford Mountaineer. It's the best off-road vehicle there is, no matter what. Don't listen to the other ones. Listen to us, the Ford Mountaineer. Sponsors of the Perfect Podcast Show today. Wow. Okay. So there we have another fantastic ad, the Ford Mountaineer. Very happy to have that ad. And my question again, so you were on Community. What was your favorite part of being on Community? Okay. Well, that's a good question. A lot of car ads I see that you have on this show. Is that a coincidence? No. You're not going to ask me a question. I'm asking you a question. You answer it, and then maybe I'll answer one of your questions. Okay, that's fair. So Community, you're asking about Community, right? That's right. I said Community. I've asked this question now. This would be my third time. What was your favorite part about being on Community? I'm the guest on the show. There's no reason to get snappy with me. Just clarifying your question. Is that okay? I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to ask me a question. But now I'm asking you a question, okay? So you have to answer my question, and then I'll answer your question. You are the one, Keith, who wanted me to ask you questions. That's how this began. You wanted me to ask questions. Now that I'm asking you questions, you don't want to answer the questions? That's right, okay? Because now I'm asking a question. I'm the host. I'm in control. This is the Perfect Podcast Show. It's my show, so you do what I say. If I want to answer a question, I answer a question. If I want you to answer a question, you answer a question. All right, that's fine. Okay, so you want to know all about when I was on Community, right? Which I was on the first season of Community, many episodes, and it was a great time. And this is what you want to know, right? That's correct. I want to know how it was being on Community. But before that, we do have to listen to an ad from our sponsor, and then we'll get that answer from you. So we're going to listen to the other ad right now. Perfect Podcast Show today is the Chevy Trekker. Trust me, it's the best vehicle you can buy. If you've heard other vehicles are better than us, they are lying to you. The Chevy Trekker is the best, so that's the one you should buy. Okay, the Chevy Trekker. Great, great, great. So, again, my question to you was, tell me about when you were on Community, something that you enjoyed. Okay, I'm ready to answer this if that's what you really want me to do. Is that what you want me to do? You're not tricking me into answering a question. Just answer mine and then I'll answer yours. I wasn't trying to trick you. I was just clarifying. I'm going to answer it now. Okay? I'm not saying anything to that because that was a question. I'm not answering it until you answer mine. Fine. I'll answer it. My favorite part of Community was really seeing, Community first season had people like Allison Brie, it had Donald Glover, it had Chevy Chase, and as you probably know, I'm a big fan of Chevy Chase. Are you asking me that as a question? Is that what you're doing? You're asking me that as a question? Because I'm not answering because you didn't finish my question. I was just clarifying again, but okay, we'll move on. I am a big fan of Chevy Chase when he was on SNL in the 70s and National Lampoon Vacation series, really great. So it's really cool to get to work with him and then also see Donald Glover before he became as famous. And then Allison Brie became much famous afterwards, as well as Dan Harmon, just seeing him work as the writer of many episodes. And Ken Jeong was on that show too. And we had a great conversation one time about, that's fantastic. That's really great. You got to be in Community. I wasn't done with the answer to your question. That's okay. We got to keep moving on. This is the Perfect Podcast Show. Lots to talk about. That's great. You got to be on Community and you did all that stuff. So let's talk about something else. You were on, wait. I get to ask you a question now. It's my turn to ask you a question. Oh, is that how this is working? Now you're in charge of the Perfect Podcast Show, even though it's my show. Well, technically it's my show too, because we have the same name and the same face. So really, isn't the Perfect Podcast Show my show? I'm going to take that as your question, and I'm going to say, no, it's not, because as you see here, I am the host, Keith Saltojanes, and you are the guest, Keith Saltojanes. So that is the answer to your question. Oh, you got me. You got me there. That was a question. You answered it. All right. What do you got next? Thank you so much. So you've been on some other things too. Community, we talked about. Curb Your Enthusiasm. Let's talk about that. Very great show. So Curb Your Enthusiasm is a show that is based around improv, right? There's no scripts for that. It's a lot of improvisation. So tell me about that. That wasn't really a question. It was more of a demand from you. Tell me about that. It wasn't, can you tell me about that? Will you tell me about that? That wasn't really a question. So I don't have to answer it. Okay, Keith, you got me? So will you do us the honor of telling us about Curb Your Enthusiasm and the improv element that goes into the making of that program? Better? Yeah, that was better. Okay, so Curb Your Enthusiasm, yeah, it's very improvised. Larry David has ideas, and nobody knows what they're going to do before they get to set. I mean, I'm sure the director and everyone else knows, but the actors don't know until they get there. And then right before the scene, he tells you and sort of, this is the thing we're going to do. You have to mention these sort of things. You get mad at me because of the water cup or whatever it might be. And then you improvise it. And then everyone yells cut and everybody laughs and everybody's laughing and laughing and laughing. That sounds like such a great time. Wow. Oh, what a time. Everybody laughs on that show. And there you go. That's how it's made. That's how Curb Your Enthusiasm is made, just through laughter. Well, I wasn't done explaining it to you, but that's okay because now I'm going to ask you a question. Now it's my turn to ask you a question. All right, fine. Ask me a question. Anything you want at all. Why are you here asking questions, Keith? What made you decide to join the podcast world? There's my question for you from the comfort of my beautiful home that you see in the background. That's my question to you. Okay, that's a pretty good question. And why did I decide to join? There's so many podcasts out there today. Well, it's pretty simple, and I'm going to answer that question. But first, a word from our sponsor. Let's hear that next ad. Supported by the Ford Mountaineer is the #1 vehicle out on the market today. You might have heard about some other vehicles, I don't know, called the Chevy Trekker, but they don't even exist. They were just a drawing that someone made and pretended to be a vehicle for you to buy. The Ford Mountaineer is an actual car, and that's the one you should purchase. Wow, that Ford Mountaineer sounds really, really good, don't you think? Are you asking me a question before you answer my question? I am asking you a question first. I'm more of a Ford Mountaineer guy. How about you? I like the Chevy Trekker a bit more. You know, the Chevy Trekker sounds like it's better built. Sounds like it's a better car, and it's no surprise that you like the Ford Mountaineer. Yeah, why is that not a surprise, huh? Do I seem like a Ford guy? You do. I'm more of a Chevy guy, and you seem like a Ford guy. I mean, I'm a Chevy guy and you're a Ford guy. You're getting me confused. You're getting me confused. I'm getting you confused. You're the one that has my name, that has my face, that's pretending you're in charge. I am in charge because I'm the host of the show. This is the Perfect Podcast Show. I'm the host. I'm in charge. Keith Saltojanes is in charge. That's right. Keith Saltojanes is in charge, and that's me. I'm Keith Saltojanes. No, I'm Keith Saltojanes. We are both Keith Saltojanes, okay? We can both be Keith Saltojanes. That's right. But only one of us is in charge, and I think it's the one who's in an actual home. That's not your actual home. You probably can't even play that grand piano. Just because I can't play it doesn't mean it's not my real home. It's clearly my real home. It's a real window, a real fireplace. It's just not lit because I have central heating, so I don't need to start a fire. Well, you're starting a fire now with me, Keith. I just had you on the show so you can talk about your work, but all you want to do is pick on me. I'm not picking on you, okay? I'm just here as the guest, and I want to answer questions. Okay, then I will ask you questions, and you will answer them, and that's how the rest of the show will go. And you're not going to cut me off anymore because you've been cutting me off. I'm not going to cut you off, okay? I just have to get the ad time in, but we're not going to cut you off, okay? I promise I will not cut you off. So, Community, Curb Your Enthusiasm, writer for BBC. So before you came on, we were trying to figure out, is it British Broadcasting Company? Is it British Broadcasting Club? Is it British Broadcasting Corporation? It's really hard to say British Broadcasting, which is probably why they always call it BBC. But anyways, what does the C stand for? So I was a writer for BBC, very famous network in the UK. And the question you're asking me is, what does the C stand for? That's the question you want to know? I don't know what the C stands for. I mean, you can ask me what the process was like, what I was writing for, who did I work with, how is it writing British material? I don't even want to tell you if it was drama or comedy because you haven't asked anything about it except what does the C stand for? Something you can easily just Google. I know I can Google it, but I don't want to Google it. I have an expert here. I'm not an expert in BBC. I work for BBC. I wrote material for BBC. Doesn't make me an expert in BBC. You didn't do your homework then. You went and worked for a company and didn't know anything about it. Let me ask you, do you know everything about shows? Do you know everything about podcasts? You're hosting a podcast, so does that mean you're an expert in them? Yes. Yes, I am. You're an expert in all things podcasts and all things shows. That's what you're saying? Yes, I'm an expert. Ask me anything about any show, and I will know it. Okay. What year did season 3 of The Wonder Years air? I'm not telling you something you can easily Google. Haha! So you can just Google what the C in BBC stands for. If you're telling me to Google, you can Google too. Why are we fighting, Keith? We're one and the same. We shouldn't be fighting. We should be friends. That's all I wanted, okay? I just wanted to be friends. I came on the show so we can finally be friends. And I don't know why we're bickering. And I don't know why there's this tension between us. I agree. We should just be friends. You and me, Keith and Keith, we go hand in hand. You know, sometimes I look in the mirror and I feel like you're looking back at me. And really, I'm just looking at myself. And sometimes when I see a photo of myself, I see you. Which says a lot because I'm really just seeing me. But really, we are one in the same. So we shouldn't fight. We should be friends. Anything you want to know about me, I'm an open book. Anything you want to know about me, I'm an open book as well. Okay, well, speaking of books, let's talk about your book. right? You have 2 books you've written, and that's pretty impressive, actually. That's really impressive. Thank you, Keith. Thank you for saying that. It was a lot of work to write not just 1 but 2 books. And it was a huge undertaking. I'm sorry, just have to stop you there. We have to play another ad from our sponsor, but I do want to hear about this, Keith. I'm not trying to cut you off. We just have to get these ads in before the end of the show. No problem. We'll listen to the ad. All right, play the ad. Episode of The Perfect Podcast Show is brought to you by the Ford Mountaineer is garbage. Get the Chevy Trekker, and that's the ad that this is about, the Chevy Trekker. It's a real car. I don't know why someone would say it's not a real car. It's clearly a real car because I'm driving it now. The Chevy Trekker. Just buy it already. Ford Mountaineer. That's the best car. Look, the Ford Mountaineer is so good that I don't even drive it. It just stays in my garage, and I walk out every day to look at it. Sure, my family wishes I would spend more time with them, but I can't because all I'm doing is staring at my car, which is the Ford Mountaineer. Wow, the Ford Mountaineer is my kind of car. I'm still the Chevy Trekker, but that's okay. That's okay. So you wanted to know about my book, right? Yes, both of them. So your first book, The Improv Mindset, How to Make Improvisation Your Superpower for Success. What an undertaking. What a title. Tell us more about that book. So that book I wrote, it took me about 10 years to write that book, and it's all about how to use improv skills in your everyday life. Literally every day we're improvising. We don't know what we're going to say, but when we find ourselves in unknown situations, what's happening to my words? I don't know. That was strange. Are you okay, Keith? Yeah, I think all of this friendship that we're getting along is just, it's a lot for me to deal with. I just so used to just being upset at you, and now we're friends, and how could I just go about my normal life talking about my book when there's this? I know it's kind of overwhelming for me too. It's like trying to do this perfect podcast show, make it perfect, but here you are, and here I am, and we're getting along, and it's really special. It's really, I mean, that's what experts say, right? Love yourself first, self-love. And is that what's happening now? Is that what this is? I think it might be. It might like I'll say it. Look, Keith, I love you. Okay, I love you. Wow, I like you too. You like me? I said I love you, and you said you like me. Yeah, it's just hard to express emotion. It's like I like you, definitely like you. Come on, say it. Come on, you love me. I love you. You love me. You could say it. Look, I love you, Keith. I appreciate you. I love what you do. I like you a lot. But you can't say you love me? Keith Saltojanes, the host of the Perfect Podcast Show. I love you. I love you. Say it back. Oh, sorry. I'm getting choked up. Is it choked up with love? Is that what's happening? No, just I think I'm getting over a cold or something. Don't change the subject. Come on. This isn't a question. This is a command and a demand. Say you love me. I am happy you're the guest today. Okay. Oh, we got to play another ad. No, you're not playing another ad. Not until you say you love me. You're not getting out because of an ad, okay? I know you got to play the ads, but you got time. Say it. Okay. Oh man, this is hard for me to do. But my guest who's here today. Wow. Keith Saltojanes, my guest. I love you. Okay, play the ad. Play the ad. Recorded by? Okay, look, I lied. I wasn't driving my Chevy Trekker when I recorded my last ad because that would be dangerous. And the one thing Chevy Trekker drivers know is you shouldn't drive and talk. Because the Chevy Trekker is so amazing, you'll be speechless when you're inside it. The Chevy Trekker, buy ours. The Ford Mountaineer might have ruined my family's relationship with me. Sure, my wife moved out and took the kids, but at least I have the Ford Mountaineer. It's a much better car than any other car available. I ruined my marriage for it. I don't know what else I can say. The new Toyota Climber. It's not a Chevy, it's not a Ford, but it's Toyota. It was made in Japan, so you know it's more futuristic and better. Get the Toyota Climber. It's gonna be better! Wow. I'm proud of you for saying that. It was hard to do. It was really, really hard to do. But I love you. I love you, Keith. I love you, Keith. Isn't this great? Isn't this great? Yeah, it is. It's like, I was a Ford guy and I was a Chevy guy, but really we're both Toyota guys. We're like the cars fighting, but really it's Toyota, the futuristic, the better option. And that is the better option, right? Instead of arguing and getting mad at yourself and saying these mean things to yourself, love yourself, right? I love you, you love me. That's what it's all about. Instead of, getting mad and talking about things that don't really matter. What matters is like, I love you and you love me. Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good feeling. Wow, we didn't really get to the rest of the stuff I want to talk to you today about. We didn't get to. I'll never know what the C in BBC stands for. And we didn't get to talk about the Marlon Wayans show you worked on. And that's okay. That's okay. There's time for that. But the most important thing is that I love you and you love me. I love you, Keith. I love you, Keith. Oh, it's getting easier to say. That's for sure. Wow. Well, we're just about out of time, and I just want to say thank you again for just all of this, for being the guest on my show. And one more question for you, Keith. How was it being the guest on the Perfect Podcast Show? This question I will answer. It was healing. It was a healing time, and it was great to chat with you and just get beyond all of the nonsense and just really just connect. And I'll never forget this. So thanks for having me on. Well, thanks for being here. It was a good time, and I'm glad it wasn't perfect, because we had a lot of arguing, but we got through it, and that's what's most important. So thanks again for being here. Do you have any final words that you want to say, Keith? Yeah, I would like to say so. Okay, well, I guess he's gone. And that's okay. Thanks for being here, Keith. My guest again, Keith Saltojanes. You can follow him on Instagram at Keith Saltojanes. You can also see him host a show every Tuesday live at 12 noon called The Perfect Podcast Show, which I'm hosting currently at this very minute right here. You can read his books. You can take classes with him. Look up Improv LA on the internet and learn all about all of it. But really, we found out it's all about loving yourself, self-love. And if there's one thing that I think everybody should take with them, it is that Toyota